What is good, guys? Welcome back to the channel. So in my last video, I took you guys on a tour of my brand new house. And in that, I touched on some of the costs involved with buying the property, but not in a huge amount of detail. So today I'm going to go through my entire house buying process, show you guys exactly how it worked and all of the costs involved, including things like legal fees, optional extras, and unexpected costs on the property. This is generally one of those things that people don't really like to talk about, but I know firsthand how valuable it can be to understand a bit more about the process and what your likely costs might be if you're a prospective first-time buyer. Now, just before we get into it, please do me a huge favour and smash that like button down below, as it does really help me out with the YouTube algorithm. And if you are new around here, make sure to hit that subscribe button down below and click that bell so you never miss a video. As always, just as a quick disclaimer, this is in no way financial advice. I'm simply just outlining information and my experiences and giving my honest opinions and thoughts. So always make sure to do your own research and due diligence when it comes to your finances. But with all of that being said, let's get into it. Right, so just before we go through all of the details and the process involved, I'll just give you guys some of the key facts of what it was I actually bought. So I bought a new build 3-bedroom terraced house that had a list price of £335,000. And I paid for this with a deposit, helped by equity loan and a mortgage. So back in June of 2021, I started seriously considering getting onto the property ladder. And just for a bit of fun more than anything else, I went to go look at some new build sites in my local area. I've always been pretty skeptical about new builds in general, so I thought it'd be good to go see firsthand what the build quality was like, whether or not there'd be any differences between builders, see how competitive the prices are to other properties selling on the market, and also I just thought it'd be fun to go see some of the show homes. To my surprise, one of the smaller builders actually really impressed me with their overall build and finish quality, as well as their whole customer experience. And just by sheer chance, a couple of days before I went to go see them, they had just released a few more 2- and 3-bedroom houses. Almost all of these had already been reserved, just showing how quickly the market was moving. And there were just 2 of the 3-bedroom houses left, which were both listed for £335,000. One of these was obviously the one I ended up purchasing, and actually the one directly next door. Now on that day, I really wasn't intending on going and putting in an offer on a house. The whole purpose was really just for a bit of research and fun more than anything else. But the market was moving so quickly that I felt I needed to consider it. I went home and got straight on Rightmove to look at that local area to see what other non-new builds were selling for. And actually, to my surprise, this house seemed really competitively priced. Next, I then went through all of the details that the builders gave us, so that includes the house layout plan and overall site plan. So I just wanted to really narrow down whether or not this was one of the better properties within the whole site, or whether or not I'd be better off trying to pick up one of the other ones on the site once they started that phase of the build process. There was also an added risk with this because house prices were going up so quickly that so were the prices of these new builds. So if, say, I bought the exact same property 6 months later, it probably would have been more expensive. In the end, I decided that this was actually one of the better properties across the whole site that was within my budget. And it had a lot of advantages that some of the other more expensive ones didn't actually have. For example, a really large garden compared to the overall house size. It's also a south-facing garden, which makes it a lot more usable. And it had off-road private parking. So literally the next day, I called up the builders to reserve the plot I wanted. And all I had to do to reserve it was put down a £500 non-refundable deposit. But this £500 does contribute to the overall total that I need to pay. So in terms of out-of-pocket cash, that starts off our total at £500. Once the house was reserved, the next step was to arrange a mortgage. Now usually when you're anticipating buying a property and you're planning on using a mortgage, you need to go to the bank first to get an agreement in principle. And this is usually necessary to put offers in on houses. And with this process, you basically give the bank all of your details in regard to salary and income, and they check your credit score to basically work out how much you can feasibly borrow, and therefore what price of property you're able to afford. I was completely unprepared and didn't actually have an agreement in principle when I went to go look at these properties, because like I said, I really wasn't intending on buying one. But luckily, the builders actually had their in-house mortgage advisor there on the day that I went to see them. So he offered to sit down with me for 10 minutes, go through all of my details in terms of income, salary, and how much deposit I had, to basically work out what I could afford. And then because of this, he was able to vouch for me that I was a genuine potential buyer, and I was able to reserve one of the plots. Now, once I actually had to find a mortgage product, I hired this mortgage advisor to basically sort everything out for me and find me the most competitive rates. And they charged me a fee of £295 for this service. Now you can apply for a mortgage without a mortgage advisor, but the benefit is it just saves you so much time. They have special software which works somewhat like a price comparison website, where they can scan through all of the different mortgage companies and see exactly what the best offers are, taking into account all of the special offers and working out which will actually be the best value for money in the long term. I literally just picked the one that was the best value for money at that time, with all of those things considered, which turned out to be a 35-year mortgage with a 1.64% interest rate, which is fixed for 5 years. And the amount of money that I borrowed is £120,000. I think the fact that you can borrow this kind of money at such a low interest rate is really amazing, and I can't think of many places where you could borrow at that rate. So this is partly why I locked in that interest rate for 5 years. I was also able to get such a good rate because of what's called the loan to value ratio. When it comes to mortgages, you get put into different loan to value bands depending on the ratio of deposit to mortgage you're intending on having. So generally the minimum deposit you can have is about 10% of the value of the property, so you'd be taking out a 90% mortgage. And if this is the case, your loan to value would be 90%. And within this first band, because you're borrowing so much compared to your deposit, you'll actually be getting the worst rates out there. The rates do get better once you move up into the next band, which is 80%, then again once you're at 75%, and finally you get the best rates out there if your loan to value is 60%, which means you have a deposit of 40% and you're only borrowing 60% of the total value of the property. For me, I wanted to make sure that I fell into this final band and had at least a 40% deposit. Now, because I was only borrowing £120,000 of a £335,000 property, my loan to value ended up being 35% with a 65% deposit. So at this point, I needed to come up with a deposit to cover the rest of the property, which is £215,000. And in order to help with this, I decided to use the Help to Buy equity loan. This is basically a government scheme which allows you to borrow up to 20% of the total value of the property, interest-free for 5 years, if you're a first-time buyer buying a new build property. I'm not going to go over this in any more detail than that, but if you do want to know more about the Help to Buy equity loan, I'll leave a link down below to one of my videos going through it in all of the detail that's necessary to really understand the potential benefits and limitations of it. So because of this scheme, that's actually saved me £67,000 of upfront cash that I don't actually need to put in as a deposit. And the reason I wanted to do this was to free up my own cash to allow me to invest elsewhere in other opportunities, rather than having a lot of money all tied up in the one asset. I will have to pay off this loan at the end of the 5 years, but hopefully I'll be able to make more money elsewhere compared to if it was tied up in the property. Now at this point, that still leaves me with £148,000 which I need to put into the property as a deposit. So at this point, I'm now out of pocket £148,295. Now simultaneously, while I was sorting out the mortgage, I also had to instruct a solicitor to carry out the conveyancing. The builders were strongly encouraging me to use their in-house solicitors because it basically makes the whole process a lot more streamlined for them. And this would have cost me around £1,500 if I'd used this service. But I decided not to do this and find my own solicitor. I think it would have been a bit risky to use their solicitors, and I was actually recommended by many people not to do this because there's a bit of a conflict of interest, and I think you want legal representation who are solely looking out for your best interests rather than anyone else's. This did end up costing me more, but I think it was worth it just in case there were any issues that cropped up, as I know that they would have been dealt with or flagged up. All of these legal costs came to £2,238.40. So just over £700 more expensive, but in the great scheme of things, it's not a really huge amount. And if I was to go back, I wouldn't change my decision. Now within these costs, this includes the solicitor's fee, land registry, searches, and lots of other things that you have to have done and can't avoid. There were also a couple of things that made it more expensive for me, one of which being the Help to Buy admin fee, which was an extra £150. And this is because there's a lot of extra paperwork involved when conveyancing a property using Help to Buy. Also, I was charged a £50 admin fee to get the solicitor to withdraw money from my lifetime ISA, which I was using to save for the deposit. These fees may seem a little bit annoying, but in the great scheme of things, because I've used a lifetime ISA and Help to Buy, it's actually saved me so much more money in the long run that it's really insignificant. Once all of these legal fees were sorted, I also had to pay stamp duty on the property. The amount of stamp duty that you're required to pay on a property varies depending on the value of that property. So it could be 2%, 5%, 10% or 12%. But usually first-time buyers don't actually have to pay any stamp duty at all. However, this is only the case if the value of the property is £300,000 or less. Anything over that amount gets charged stamp duty at a rate of 5%, or more if the property value is over £500,000. So in my case, I had to pay 5% on £35,000, which amounts to £1,750, which is a little bit annoying, but it's not nearly as eye-watering as it could be if you were buying a really expensive property. So that covers all of the general house buying costs, but because I bought a new build, there were actually other extra costs that I had to pay for, as well as some optional extras and fittings I decided to go for. So one of the fun parts about buying a new build is that you can actually spec out the house exactly how you want it. So with my builders, there was a certain number of things that I needed to choose, for example, the bathroom tiles, kitchen finish, and whatnot. So they have a sample room and you get to pick and choose exactly what you want. Some of the things are optional upgrades and will cost you more, but there were also some things that just weren't included in the standard price, mainly being the flooring. So as standard within the price, they don't actually include any flooring except within the kitchen and bathrooms. So that means throughout the rest of the property, I had to pay extra for flooring. For the downstairs, I decided to go for a porcelain tile, which came to £2,160. I could have gone for a laminate option, which would have saved me about £400, but I wanted a consistent flooring throughout the entire downstairs, spanning through the kitchen as well. So I just thought porcelain tile would be a better fit and wear better over time. Then for the carpets, all I had to really do was pick a colour, and these cost me £1,600. I do think it's a bit cheeky that they don't even include a base level of flooring as standard, because it is really a necessary thing to allow the house to function properly. But a lot of builders do this, and I guess it's just something you have to get over. The flooring was really the only thing that wasn't included that was completely necessary, but I did also choose to upgrade certain things within the property. They gave me a huge list of things that I could choose to upgrade, and it could be really easy to get carried away and end up spending a lot of money. So I tried to keep it to the bare minimum, choosing just things that I thought would actually add value to the property potentially, as well as things that would just help to make my life a bit easier. First, we have the bathroom shower. As standard, there would have been 2 tiles high to surround the bath, no shower screen and no proper shower fitting. There would have just been a normal tap with a shower hose extension. And so if I left it like this, it wouldn't really be fit to use as a shower and would just be usable as a bath. So this might be fine for families, but for me, I just thought if I ever have anyone to come and stay, or if I decide to rent out one of the rooms, you can't expect them to use a bath and not provide a shower facility. So I decided to upgrade this and get the full tiling to the roof, shower screen and proper thermostatic shower, which cost me an extra £1,500. Then moving to the ensuite, I also decided to upgrade the shower to have both a rain head shower fitting, as well as a built-in recessed shower niche. And each of these cost £250. I mentioned this in the last video, but I actually got a 50% refund on the recessed shelf, because basically I was really unhappy with the install quality and it just wasn't done to nearly the same standard as it was in the show home. So it is annoying, but at least I got some money back. Then moving on, I also opted to have a loft ladder installed, which cost an additional £225. It seems a little bit steep, but it saved me the hassle of having to install one for myself and making sure I get one that actually fits. The final item I upgraded was actually across the entire kitchen. So as standard, the kitchen cabinets would have been made from some sort of sheet material covered in a sort of flat plasticky finish. So I paid £350 to upgrade all of these to be made from real timber. And the main difference is really just aesthetic, and you can see the wood grain coming through. But the logic behind this is when I inevitably scuff up the doors in some way, it will hopefully be less visible because of the grain and the texture on the doors. Okay, so that basically covers everything. So at this point, I'm now out of pocket £158,493.40, with the overall extra cost amounting to £10,493.40. In my opinion, that is quite a lot of money that's extra compared to the original list price. So if you are a first-time buyer looking to buy a regular property or a new build, it would most likely be a good idea to leave yourself with a bit of extra cash as a safety buffer to cover these extra costs. But there we have it, that covers everything for today, guys. If you did make it this far, thank you so much for watching, and please do me a huge favour and smash that like button down below, as it does really help me out with the YouTube algorithm. Please also drop your thoughts down below in the comments, and I'd love to know if this has helped you guys out in any way. If you do have any questions for me though, maybe about the process or anything else, do just drop me a comment down below, as I make sure to respond to all comments. And if you are new around here, make sure to hit that subscribe button down below and click that bell so you never miss a video. But with all of that being said, take it easy guys and keep saving.